now when I read X-Men comics, I get to, sometimes when you read comics, if you've seen them in cartoons or TV shows, you kind of get their voice in your head when you're reading. I don't know if I'm just the only crazy person that does that.
No, I do too.
I either get the 1990s Wolverine from the X-Men show, or I get Steve Blum, who's the current voice of Wolverine in like Wolverine and the X-Men when it was on, and he does Wolverine. I hear those voices in my head when I read Wolverine. That kind of gruff sounding voice.
Oh, I
read him
talking just like the '90s X-Men series. Every time I read it, all I can hear is that guy's. I don't know who did that voice, but to me, forever, for the rest of my life till I die, that guy is the voice of Wolverine.
As long as it's not the Wolverine voice from, if you remember, there was one episode. It was called Pride of the X-Men. You remember that?
Spider-Man and his amazing friends. Is that what
No, it wasn't. It was supposed to be an X-Men show, and it was called Pride of the X-Men, and it had Wolverine, Dazzler, Nightcrawler, and they went to Asteroid M to face off against the Brotherhood, which was like Toad and Juggernaut.
Australian Wolverine.
Australian Wolverine.
Yeah,
Wolverine's
he's also Australian in the Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends episode with the X-Men. And that was what first introduced me to the character altogether. I must have been 5 or 6 years old when that cartoon came on, and I remember watching it when it was brand new. Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends, they went to the Xavier School for the day for Firestar to meet, or to go back and visit her friends, and Iceman too. And they
got lost in like the weird dimensional pocket thing? Was that where they got lost? Is that where they got lost in like the weird dimension type thing within the X-Mansion?
This is where Juggernaut came and tried to attack Charles Xavier, and they all X-Men and they had to fight. But Wolverine, I remember the first scene you ever see him in that cartoon is he skewers some fruit out of a fruit bowl on his claw, and says like, "Can't have some fruit." And he's like in this thick Australian accent. And I didn't know what Wolverine was supposed to sound like back then, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And he had the Bumblebee yellow suit on, and it was just that. Ever since that episode, I have loved that character, and I always will.
Well, I think what was real, with Wolverine in Pride of the X-Men, I think they said the reason why he ended up with an Australian accent was like he said something that was kind of like shrimp on the Barbie or something. Hold on, here it is. The cat, in the script, Wolverine calls Pyro a dingo because Pyro is Australian. So he calls Pyro a dingo. So the voice actor thought that Wolverine was Australian, and that's why they gave him the Australian. He's sitting there, and I just remember this day. I'm sitting there, and they're talking about Kitty Pryde joining the X-Men, and he's scraping his claws, and he's like, "Oi, she ain't gonna join the X-Men, is she? She's just a kid."
Oh, that's funny.
He's like, "Crikey, look at this mutant right here. This mutant, he's got the power, and it's huge, and if I'm not careful, this mutant could bite me, and I can lose my arm. It'll grow back, but crikey." But I loved him in the 90s, and especially the first episode. The first time you see him, you think Wolverine's a big character. The first X-Men you really see, of course, the first X-Men you see is Jubilee, and then you see Storm and Rogue, Gambit, and Cyclops. The first thing you get of Wolverine is him slicing through a wall, and he just throws his claws out, attacks Gambit, pins him to the ground, and is like, "Tag, you're it. This game is over." And then Jubilee blasts Wolverine to a wall, and everybody looks at Jubilee and is like, "Are you all right?" And Wolverine just goes, "Not for long."
He's gonna kill a little girl with his claws.